Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mish's Market Minute, this weekly edition with your host, me, Mish Schneider. Once again, lots to cover, so no dawdling. Let's get to it. We're going to talk about all things blockchain because there is a new ETF that actually has 70 issues in it. I've picked quite a few to go through, and we're going to go through not only this BLCN, but we're going to look at the top 25 holdings. Some of the companies have a smaller share in blockchain while others have a larger share, but they're all in this particular basket. And this is called the NASDAQ Next Gen Economy ETF, which is interesting. So let's get started right away. Here, of course, I'm going to give you the list of symbols that we're looking at. I'm not going to read them to you because that'll take too much time, but if you ever want to refer back to any of them, here they are. So let's move on right to the charts. So here is the actual ETF, BLCN. I like it's called reality shares, NASDAQ Next Gen Economy. Everything about that just sounds good to me. Next generation, reality, and blockchain. So what we can see right now is that it's been sort of dancing here after making new highs. I don't know how much volume is in the actual ETF itself, but you see the 50-day moving average is pretty far. The momentum is pretty good. It's showing tremendous leadership in the overall market. And so at this point now, it looks to me like if it got through 50, that would be the area to be looking for. And if you wanted to pick some kind of a risk point, most likely the risk from under yesterday's low at 47.34 would be where I would look. Of course, since we're going into uncharted territory, if it breaks out, that's the risk you'd be taking to see if you can get from a $2.50 risk about $5 from there at least. So that's the actual ETF. Let's go through some of the symbols here. Let's start with the first one. This is Canaan Inc. and it's semiconductors and technology. Like I said, some of these companies are going to have more of a presence in blockchain than others, but this looks very similar almost to the ETF, showing great leadership, great momentum, very far from the actual 50-day moving average. But again, looks to me like if it can get through this 21 level, 21, let's call it 21 to 2150, that would be another indication that it possibly could go higher with a risk, let's say under 1565. So the thing that you really have to ask yourself here is how bullish are we in the blockchain space? So next one we're going to cover here is Galaxy Digital Holdings, the symbol BRPFH. And you can see also, like of all the blockchain stocks, obviously with the Bitcoin going up, these things have done well. But if you want to get into something that's related and not necessarily into Bitcoin, that's why I'm doing this today. So here's another one that is doing okay in momentum, not amazing because it's come off from the high of the momentum, even though the price isn't that much further. Still showing good leadership here. But what's interesting to me is as I'm talking to you on a Friday, is we're getting an inside day, and I've talked to you a lot about inside days. So this is actually inside the range of the day before, which means that what you really want to see now is for this to clear 1474. And if you really wanted to kind of play this tight, I'd probably say the right risk is somewhere around 1050. So that would be about a $4 risk. But on the other hand, this again would have a tremendous amount of potential to go up from here if we continue to see blockchain do what we think blockchain could do. This one everybody knows, this is Square. And Square, this is part of Jack Dorsey, Twitter. They're doing all types of stuff with blockchain. Not only are they having some sort of a credit card situation here, or I should say a payment system in blockchain or in Bitcoin, but they're also offering grants to blockchain developers. And so right now, this looks pretty darn good. Again, it looks like we're getting some decent consolidation. So 257, 258 is your support. And again, if we get a close look at this doji day right here, it opened around 277. So I would say maybe through 277, 278, that would be the place that I would be looking for this to clear. And again, I would probably be saying, you know, looks like a big risk, $16, $17 risk, but when you're talking about stocks that are trading at 275, that's the kind of risk you're going to expect this day. Now, the only thing that prevents me from saying gung-ho, let's get in, is the first two that I showed you actually have less, much greater momentum than this one is, which is closer to the moving averages, and the momentum isn't nearly as great considering that the price is near the all-time high, and when it went to a new all-time high, look at where the momentum was there. But it also is showing tremendous leadership, and this is a big name. So let's go on to another one. So far I'm much more interested in the Canaan and actual ETF than I am in Square. This one is Barclays. Yes, a lot of the banks now are starting to talk about getting into blockchain. JP Morgan being one. I'll show you that chart in a moment. But right now with this one, again, yesterday it was actually, who would have guessed, but when it was falling down, but yesterday it got as close to the 50-day moving average as you can get. But this has been a bank that has really been, look at the price, 860. I mean, compared to some of the other instruments, this is still relatively weak. And also we have some range on this one. So if we go to, let's say 3 years back, you can take a look and see that back in 2018, this was trading up here at 11, and now it's trading at 8. Even back in 2019, it traded up as high as 10 or close to 10, 950. So really what you have to say now is if it holds 8, can this go up? Now, what's interesting about this is the actual um, momentum. Let's go back to looking at it over a course of a year. It'll be easier to see. But you can see the momentum, which went negative, is now sitting right back over the 50. So there's a little bit of a divergence here in that this is struggling to gain momentum. But it doesn't surprise me when you're talking about such a cheap stock. So I would say if you wanted to get involved in this, I'd want to see this hold above this high here at 857, which it's doing right now. And I'd probably want to give this room down to around 790 to see if this can go up. I don't think that's a bad risk reward, actually. And some of you I know prefer to trade stocks that aren't extremely expensive, like the one I just showed you before. So now let's go on to the next one. It's a Chinese company. You're all familiar with it. This is JD. JD.com is huge in China. But what's so interesting to me is talk about a divergence. Look at this. We have this not even clearing the 200-day moving average on the momentum indicator, yet it's well above the 50 and the 200-day moving average here. So what does that mean? This probably means right now that this might be a little bit extended. So what I would prefer to do is either wait for the momentum indicator to clear over the 200. You can see even here it didn't get, it just barely crossed over the 200. It was back in these levels when it was showing more momentum, and then it broke down in momentum. You could see here, and then it broke down in price. So it's been sitting on the Bollinger Band, which is good, while the price is going up and the leadership is good. But this would not be my favorite unless we got some kind of a better move down closer, let's say to 100, or like I said, we start to see this momentum increase. But that's kind of interesting as a Chinese company. Okay, everybody knows about Microsoft. And what's interesting about Microsoft is I've actually been telling people to stay away from big tech. But what's great about big tech right now is that you've got a situation where this one, if it's getting more involved with blockchain technology after this, all of this consolidation could be interesting. Now, the reason why I was negative in this was when the momentum was negative, and the momentum still hasn't really gone great. I still don't see it above this 200-day moving average. So as we're looking at this consolidation here, what I would really prefer to do if we go back a little bit is either to see a move back down closer to 231, or to wait for this momentum to go through. If you're a believer in Microsoft, then you would have to risk somewhere around 238. I wouldn't give it much more room than that. And I wouldn't get in now until it took out like 245, 246, and hopefully the momentum happens to agree with it when that happens. ACN is another one, Accenture. Now, this one actually has not great momentum and showing not much leadership, but in terms of price risk, it's actually the cleanest, because what you can see here is the 50-day moving average. So that 50-day moving average is coming in at 254.77, and it's trading $10 higher. So if you wanted to take a look at this one, I would keep my eye on this maybe for next week to see if we can get this momentum back over that 200-day moving average. And when I'm talking about these momentum indicators, what I'm really talking about here is a situation where You can get them as plugins through our market gauge site on StockCharts. They're very valuable to have. Okay, JP Morgan, I mentioned I was going to talk about the other bank. This looks completely different from what we saw before with Barclays. And actually, this is a 6-month calendar range high right here at around 142.60. So we spent 3 days dancing on it, and now we have the gap up today. If you're a momentum trader, just be wary of the fact that we want the momentum to sort of continue to go up here. So if I were going to do anything with this one, it would probably be more active trade. I'd be out if it broke down under today's low 145.86, today being Friday. And if I were buying it, I'd be looking at it right here, which it's trading right now at 147.70. And again, have a couple of dollar risk to see if this can go up. On the overall chart, this is a new all-time high. So a lot of these stocks are momentum trades. And when we look at something like IBM, this is going to be a different kind of trade because you can see IBM has been struggling. IBM, I just read, is trying to get rid of the Watson system that they've been using. And instead, they're looking at the getting more into the blockchain technology. So look where this is now on the momentum indicator. It's above the 200 and the price is above 200. Interestingly enough, no real divergence, not really showing any leadership. In fact, it's well underperforming. However, you have a situation right here where you can use this 200-day moving average with a low here of 119. So let's take a look at 119. Where would I get involved with this now? I'd probably want to see these highs from the last couple of days be taken out. So let's say over 121, a $2 risk on a stock like IBM could be interesting. So I'm going to write down IBM for myself as well as one that I think could actually turn out to be a not a bad trade. XL and X is another one. X-Links. This is another situation where we're under the 50-day moving average, but we're sitting below it, obviously, in momentum, but above the 200 in momentum, far from the price here, and also sitting on some support in terms of leadership. So again, what I always like to tell you is when you're talking about these instruments that are trading underneath a major moving average, very simply, you want to see the momentum increase, at least to get through this Bollinger Band right here, ideally through the 50-day moving average, and you want the price to go through the 50-day moving average at least for a couple of days. But this would be a semiconductor technology stock that I think would also be interesting to keep an eye on. Next, going back to China, we're looking at Baidu. Baidu made a huge move when it made the announcement not only about electric vehicles, but also blockchain technology. I think in this case, again, if you're more of a momentum trader, maybe I would be interested in getting in, but I would not want to be long anymore if it broke down under 280 and it's trading $29 from there. So you might have missed the boat. But more interestingly, I wouldn't be upset about that because your momentum peaked and now it's come back down. So it'll be interesting to watch this over the next couple of days. Where would I possibly be more interested? Maybe, like I said, if it got closer back down to around 290. Okay, the next one is actually also a small bank. This is Banco Santander. And this too, you could see the momentum cleared the 50, the price is well above it. Had I been looking at this, which I wish I had here, when it was just clearing the 50 on momentum and just clearing the 50 on the moving averages, that would have been a better buy. But the question is now with a gap up as I'm talking to you today, what does that mean for this stock going forward? This is a cheap stock. Look where it's trading. 361. So even if you just risk to under the 50-day moving average at under 322, that's a 40-cent risk on a $3 stock. It's actually kind of big, but you would be looking at the possibility that this would continue to go higher. So that's kind of an interesting one for people who don't like to trade big stocks like the one I'm about to show you, Alphabet. Which we talked about after earnings. But again, momentum is okay, nothing horrible there. Leadership, great. And a lot of consolidation here. So this is another one where I probably wouldn't touch this because of the price that it's trading at. But some people really like to do these sort of stocks. Where would I risk at this point? You really have to pick your stop carefully. And I would say 2085, that would be about it. And then, of course, you'd be really thinking that this thing can continue to go up. But more importantly, what you're seeing is these big tech companies that are switching over to blockchain are really benefiting. Now, here's an interesting stock. This is one of the biggest semiconductor stocks. This is Taiwan Semiconductor. And again, sitting right on the 50 in momentum, well above it. So it's interesting to me that these could actually wind up taking a little bit of a tumble, potentially closer to the 50. That's, of course, where I would prefer to get in, somewhere around 125. But I'm finding it interesting that the bigger the stock, the less the momentum is, and in this case, even the leadership. So right now, the winners still seem to be some of the smaller stocks at IBM, Barclay, as the one I just showed you, and maybe even Santander Bank, if you were interested in looking at something like that. Now, this is another one. I've never even seen this stock before. Broadridge Financial Solutions. What's interesting about this is, again, momentum is showing divergence to the price, which is just clearing the 50. That doesn't necessarily mean that you don't buy this stock. It just means that basically what you want to see is the momentum to go in line with what we're seeing in the price. And it's just clearing the 50-day moving average as I'm talking to you today. I would probably give this one more day to see if it confirms over the 50. I'd like to see the momentum improve, and I'd like to see this take out 150.58, which was the high from this day when it broke down from under the 50. But this is not a bad one either. And I also recommend, since I haven't really looked at the fundamentals on any of these banks or financial solution companies or even semiconductor companies, that you might want to take a look at that as well, as far as how involved in blockchain are they. Okay, the next one is DocuSign. Now, this is also an interesting one because you have the momentum here is just hitting over the 50. And now we're doing the 50-day moving average here. Again, we haven't gone up to the highs here, but this also looks kind of interesting. If you want to risk down to under the 50, you can do that. That's about the only thing that I can think of here is that this would have to actually hold this 42.53. That's a $24 risk. But again, you're talking about a stock that's trading at 268. Obviously, you want to see if this thing can get over this high here at 290 and continue. So that's a 1-to-1. So I would probably, in these big stocks that I'm showing you here, I would probably be more inclined to buy smaller positions. And here's another big name that you'll recognize, and this is AMD, Advanced Micro Devices. Now this one, look at the momentum here, and it's under the 50. So again, what you want to do with this one now is you want to see if the momentum can at least take back this Bollinger Band right here. Obviously, you want to see greater momentum and greater leadership. At the same time, you also want to see this have 2 days of a move over that 50-day moving average. Now, the other one I'm going to show you is also going to be a big stock here, Alibaba. Now, Alibaba actually had a death cross, interestingly enough. The 50 is under the 200, but the price is above. But that doesn't necessarily bother me because right now the 50 and the 200 are still together close enough. And the 50 is a neutral slope. If it was negative slope, that would be more concerning. And the 200 is a positive slope. But more importantly here, we have the momentum not looking so great. Leadership is sort of in line. So this might be something to take a look at as well. If it can get closer down to around 260, that would be an interesting place to look at. Or if it gets through 275 and the 50 starts to look like it's getting more in line with the 200, and also the momentum starts to improve here too. Alibaba's had some issues because of Jack Ma, but nonetheless, it really is actually still a very strong company, and I wouldn't discount its future by any means. Okay, a couple more left. Hewlett Packard. Now, interestingly enough, you think of Hewlett Packard as more on the 3D space, but it is into also some blockchain technology. It's also an inexpensive stock at 14.16 where it's trading currently. You had a 3-day correction and now it's popped up a little bit. When that kind of happens, it gives you an opportunity to risk to under whatever the low of the correction is with a little fudge. So I would say maybe under 13.68. But the momentum looks good here. So actually, Hewlett Packard may not be a bad one for you to consider. Again, if you want to take advantage of the blockchain technology and a stock that's not expensive and with a relatively tight risk, I would not risk all the way down to the 50. I think that would just be too much. Okay, Micron, another name that you all will recognize here. Also, I mean, this is a momentum trade. Now that it's over all these highs, again, you probably missed the boat here a little bit unless you really just wanted to do a more active trade and risk to under 88.81, which is the low of the day that I'm talking to you, to see how much more this has on the upside. But Micron is a huge name in semiconductors and technology, and if they're getting involved in blockchain, it's possible that we can see this stock go from 90 to 150. That is extremely possible. One Connect Financial Technology, believe it or not, came up on that list. Look at this one, how weak it is. But I like this because these are the ones you want to watch for when they change direction. So you've got 19 here as a really big area of support. You have an upward slope on the 200, and it's right now it's in a distribution phase, which means that the 50 is over the 200 and the price is under the 200. So I would look at the momentum here, which is really weak. I would like to see some kind of improvement in momentum. And I would like to see maybe 2 days where it trades back over that 200-day moving average, which is at 2020. And then you could risk to under 19. Again, I would do a little bit of research into this company to see just how much they're involved in blockchain technology. You got a lot of resistance up here, but at the same time, you would have a really good risk point. And I like that when I can find my way. Here's another huge name in the blockchain space, of course, is PayPal. But PayPal, look at that 3-day correction. Now it's struggling here to hang on, try to even clear the highs from the day before. Momentum has come off, but it's nothing really terribly concerning. So this PayPal would be another situation where let's look at all the recent support. 274 is really where this has to hold. And at this point, probably, believe it or not, I would wait for it to clear 300 to show me some muscle. So you have a $25 risk once again, but what you're really asking yourself is, can this go from 300 to 350? And considering what's going on in the whole Bitcoin space, Riot being up 20% today, Bitcoin being up, these are, legitimate questions to ask yourself. How involved you want to be with these bigger companies? And I've certainly given you a lot of choice with some of the smaller ones. The same thing with NVIDIA. Another really big stock, momentum though, not very impressive. I was really not interested in this one. And even when it cleared the 50, it was too far away. However, one cannot deny that NVIDIA is a big company. So what I would be looking for now is to see, first of all, if it holds around 580, I wouldn't give it much more room than that. And if it can sort of close over 600, you got a $20 risk, which in a $600 stock is not that bad, to see if you can get up to 640 or so, or new highs in NVIDIA. And the last one, believe it or not, is the credit card company, American Express. And obviously the news came out today as I'm talking to you about the blockchain technology. So 130 though, it's not as scary as it looks. You got the momentum really improving here and the leadership. If you just did this with a stop under 129.49, you'd have basically about a $5 risk to see what American Express has got going for it. I'm just going to look at a 3-year chart on this one because I want to see, some history here. This at one point was trading the high, not much higher than that. Let's see. This was 135.70. This is 135.61. We're $2 under that. So would I be risking maybe, like I said, for under today's low at 129.50 to see $5 to see if we could take out 135 and move on to 150 and above? Absolutely. So there you go. So that gives you a whole bunch of ideas now, some cheaper stocks, some expensive stocks, and also just the whole idea of BLCN itself as the ETF for trading the blockchain space. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks so much. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.